Hello, I'm Ben Eagle and welcome to this episode of Meet the Farmers. Today I'm speaking to Luke Hasell at Heron's Green Farm in a beautiful part of North Somerset overlooking the Chew Valley Lake. Luke is an organic beef farmer specialising principally in pedigree South Devons, and he also rents some land to the community farm, a community-supported agriculture enterprise.
My family have been here for quite a few generations, and I'm very fortunate to be farming at Heron's Green Farm and Wood Barn Farm. I've always lived here, Heron's Green Farm. Didn't set out to become a farmer. My dad was always very keen to encourage us not to follow in his footsteps for one strange reason or another. I guess I'm trying to prove him wrong, because it is an amazing opportunity to be able to be involved in agriculture and taking the farm in a new direction, which is exactly what I've done since he passed away. I trained as a civil engineer, so I went to London, got a degree and worked for Kier Group and was setting out engineer for building large Tesco's stores. And it was always very similar to what we're doing now, really, is juggling lots of balls and being in charge of lots of subcontractors and various trades. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I took my father's advice and went off and got an education, of which he didn't, but it's a different era back then, and he was a farmer through and through, and loved it. Loved machinery, loved animals, loved the land, and it was just a shame he died at 51. My mum sadly followed him in 2007, so over the last decade or so it's been a hell of a pretty hard time and a bit of a journey.
Your dad ran quite a large-scale contracting business. How has the farm business changed since you took over the farm?
When I was 16, 17, I worked on the tractors and trailers and rakes and silage making throughout about a season or two I did. And I was always sat on the tractor, mulling time over. I could always try and calculate in my head, because I knew what he was charging, thinking, this is a really not very sustainable way of making a living, or it's a very stressful way of making a living too. So I knew immediately as soon as Dad had died, it was definitely something I wouldn't be carrying on. So it was an easy decision, that one, to sell all the machinery and take the farm into a different direction. We now farm about 400 acres, and we also have an 80-acre plot with the National Trust at Lee Woods. So we are managing nigh on 500 acres in an environmentally friendly way.
And you work alongside your old school friend, Jim Twine, who farms about a few miles away, Court Farm, Winford. And that, I think I'm right in saying, was the first organic farm in Somerset.
Yeah, John Twine was a pioneer in organic farming, especially in the southwest and especially around here. He had had a similar kind of experience to me, I suppose. He's decided to pack up his suitcase in a busy life in London and wanted to become a biodynamic organic farmer, and did exactly that. He bought a rundown old farm called Court Farm in Winford. It was about 80 acres. Jim Twine is my best friend and been there for me through thick and thin, and always advised, picked up the phone anytime, and we now I share farm. So I run Court Farm for him, and he has a very, very heavy hand in the way we've taken it, and our contacts with the National Trust. And he was very clear that he didn't want to do what I've done and run the farm day to day, mainly because he was the commercial director of the Soil Association at the time. So yeah, I mean, without Jim, it wouldn't have been such a straightforward, clear mission for me to convert everything. It's an amazing friendship. Luckily, we're still friends, even though we're in business.
So you're mainly farming North and South Devons here. Why? What's so special about the Devons?
Yeah, good question. I did a lot of research in 2005. I went around Angus farms. I went around Herefords. We wanted a native breed. We wanted to farm organically and pasture fed. And we chose South Devon in the end, but mainly because in my previous experience as farming, I wanted to create a carcass that was quite large, and so I was almost worried about not having the carcass weight on a Hereford or an Angus, because we've been so used to Simmentals and Charleys and all the continental breeds. So I was nervous about not having the same amount of money at the end of every few months when we were finishing. But what sealed it for me was visiting the South Devon herds and the cows being so gentle and quiet and docile. And so I went down the South Devon pedigree route. We've crept in with a few North Devons, but that was primarily so that we could satisfy the National Trust contract. On reflection, 10 years on, I am finding it extremely hard to finish a South Devon carcass compared to a North Devon or an Angus. If I was armed with the experience of which I have now, I might not have gone down the route of South Devon, because a decade on we are 100% pasture fed, and I'm finding it hard to put the fat cover on a South Devon.
You market your beef through the Story Group. Just to hear how that came about and how the business has grown.
When me and Jim were sat in a pub deciding what to call it, I wanted to call it Go Organic, because that's what I was about to embark upon. But Jim won the debate and wanted to call it The Story. We wanted to tell a story about produce, where it was from and how it was produced. As well as beef, we wanted to try and link up with other local producers, which was always the original mission, to tell their story as well, and for that story not to be lost through the multinationals and the supermarkets. In the meat industry, the prices are driven down to such a minimum that it's almost hard to compete in the marketplace, and that's probably why I am finding it quite really hard at the Story. It's not an easy thing to try and achieve when you're mainly up against bigger companies with a turnover of $500,000 a month. Is exactly the same parallels are apparent at the Story to the community farm. We have an absolutely fantastic box scheme on offer to the public, and we struggle to get over 450 boxes to Bristol and Bath and Frome and Chew Valley area. When we set out with the mission in 2009, we were convinced we would hit 1,000 within 2 or 3 years.
Let's talk about community farm. How does it come about?
When I was running the marathon in New York, I noticed on lots of these skyscrapers that there was these CSAs happening, and it gave me a bit of inspiration to do a bit of research and come back to the UK and attempt to try and set up a CSA, of which a good friend of mine, Laura, wanted to set up a small market garden of her own, and she also was inspired by the CSA movement because she'd been working at the Stride. I gave her 2 acres of land, which was probably more like 3 acres because I got a bit carried away. That was the start of the area of which the community farm was born out of. And then following that, she moved to Cornwall and became a tenant farmer for a charity. And so we had to find another farmer or somebody to take it on. And that's when I approached Phil Horton, the Better Food Company, to come and grow and move from his existing site in Rinkton to our lovely site in Chumagna. So he took on the whole field, he grew on 10 acres, and he had an existing box scheme of about 250, 300 customers. The pretense of Phil taking it on was that we would always attempt to try and link up with the community more and start this CSA. And so in 2009, we launched our first community share offer, which was before any of the crowdfunding kind of campaigns. We wanted to raise £250,000, take on the existing business, to invest in the capital infrastructure, so buy some tractors, buy some polytunnels. We didn't reach that much. We were still astounded with the response, and we did get about 570 investors from around the world, and we raised about 127,000, and we launched it, and we're still in existence, but it has been equally as a tough journey. It's an amazing place to be. We get some amazing feedback, and it's not only because of the view, also because of the people involved and what we're trying to achieve. I think everyone buys into it, and it's just a real shame that not more people know about it.
Let's talk briefly about your diversification schemes you've got going on.
Diversification of the farm is part and parcel of running a farm at the moment. In 2004, my mum and I decided that we wanted to plant forest in memory of Dad, and so we planted 29,000 trees, and that's materialised into the most amazing event space, which we now use for weddings and events and special weekends. We ran an event in Bristol for 4 years called Eat, Drink, Bristol Fashion, and that was all about getting people to eat in a relaxed atmosphere with live music going on at the same time, maybe some circus acts, maybe some different things going on, but it was inspired with a best friend of mine, Josh Eggleton, and so that was our start and attempt in going into the events world, and we never for the life of us thought that we would get accepted to stage it in Queen Square, which is one of the most stunning parts of Bristol. But the council, very luckily for us, said, Yeah, you can have Queen Square if you want. And we enjoyed every minute of every event, but unfortunately it didn't stack up financially because it was a free event. So we didn't do it last year, and that was when I first decided to try and do an event on the farm. We've started a Valley Fest. We've got a licence now for 5,000 people to come and enjoy the farm. We want to try and create an organic experience with food, lifestyle, energy. And
So what's a typical day for Luke Hasell?
varies from summer to winter because at the moment the cows are in, so I get up and do the cows bed down clean, and I can get them done more or less by 11, and then I often go to the butcher shop where I have an office and micromanage them. and then it's just it's insane really, and everyone can get you at any moment, so it's emails and the phone doesn't stop.
What is the biggest challenge you and Herons Green Farm are facing currently, and what challenges do you think you'll face in the future?
Personal challenge I face is to try and make organic farming more of a norm. A lot of farms face huge challenges because of the way in which we are farming the land. We're pasture fed here now, and I want to try and go down that road more. I want to try and learn more about how I can grow better grass, and because I'm still learning every day. As stewards of the land, we have a very important job ahead of us, and I want to leave a legacy for my kids to understand why I'm doing it.
In the light of Brexit, the renegotiation, it's a very uncertain time for farming. From your point of view, how could a new British agricultural policy help?
They need to encourage us to throw our ploughs away and look after the soil. For me, on a personal level, if they could scrap the 30-month rule on finishing beef cattle, I'd be a happy man, because I can't finish cattle at 30 months at the moment because I'm pasture fed. So for me, that would be a great change. It's worrying times for farming. I can't see how we will survive if we either don't get paid more money for our produce, or we continue in some sort of environmentally tiered subsidies system. We certainly would be bankrupt tomorrow if we didn't have the single farm payment. I'm not sure how the government are going to wean us off subsidies or payments. It would be great if they could, and we could all stack up and be financially sustainable and viable, but at the moment it's definitely not.
What would your vision be for farming for the next generation?
I want to see more organic farms. I want to see more CSAs. I want to see landowners be a bit more accepting with allowing the next generation to come and farm and take over plots. Let's face it, land is so expensive that the next generation probably won't even be able to afford to buy any land. Every single farm that lives on the edge of a city or a village should have a community plot or a piece of land that's used to better the local community and village and towns. So we have about 60 South Devon and North Devon cows, and the followers associated with them. So we float around about 180 to 200 animals. In the next couple of years, we need to have a little bit more and buy in some more stores.
They're tucking into their silage. When do they come in?
Because of the HLS scheme, we bring them in at the beginning of November, 1st of November, and they stay in until March, April time. So yeah, 6 months of the year is full-on work. 6 months of the year is quite nice. I love putting them out to grass. It's amazing. Luckily, we've got plenty of it here. I've got the bull here is quite young. He's called Star Buster, and the other one's called Tank, and they both seem to throw some good calves.
Can you describe what kind of conservation management you're doing on the farm?
Yeah, well, for 10 years previous, we were on the stewardship scheme. So we've now gone on to the HLS scheme, and we did a lot of our capital works in the previous 10 years. We've got quite a lot of fields up at the top of the farm, which we are trying to do into wildflower meadows. And so we've done quite a lot of work in connection with the Avon Wildlife Trust, who have helped us with the planting, and had some voluntary sessions with various people out here doing the wildflower seeding. We also have other prescriptions on some of the other land for growing legume-rich grasses, which we have to do about 15 acres a year, and rotating that. And I do that on the arable land. We then have obviously the looking after the headlands and the hedgerows and various other prescriptions that we do on an environmental basis.
Got a mix of bloodlines in here, see?
Well, that's still
Somerset
from my
and some-
dad's era, so she would be nearly 16 or like 15 years old. Again, the Anguses are from my dad's era,
Okay.
and all the other ones are imported in from me buying pedigree stock from
Yeah.
sales. If I could just grow better crops of the barley, peas and vet, then I should be able to finish them all right again. It's just this year's that you couldn't see loads of barley in that because I couldn't quite get it right.
What's the future of the herd?
The hopes for the future is that the public will get a little bit more engaged in organic farming and pasture-fed farming and understand why it's important. The future for my farm here, I'm not sure. I'd like to think that my children will look at it as a good occupation and I can leave it in good hands to farm in an organic way.
And if you'd like more information on Luke's farm, visit www.storybutchers.co.uk. To find out more about the community farm, including information on their veg boxes, visit www.thecommunityfarm.co.uk. This programme was presented and edited by Ben Eagle and mastered by Tom Bland for thinkingcountry.com.